Well, here we are again, folks. Rumors of Kathleen Kennedy no longer being president of Lucasfilm.
Wait,
Groundhog Day again.
what? Again?
Welcome everybody to the Resistance broadcast. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for listening or watching. However you're taking the show in, we appreciate it very much. We appreciate you very much. And we're going to have some fun talking about Star Wars. We have a loaded show. We have Will of the Force. We have a news segment, the Resistance Report. Obviously, the Kathleen Kennedy stuff, top of mind there, but some other things as well, including a check-in on what Hasbro's doing, and a discussion at the end, which is going to be all about that Andor trailer. No, did we do a reaction video? We didn't. Did we do a breakdown video? No, we didn't. We're just going to talk about this thing on the episode, old school style, and give all our thoughts now that it's been in our brains, in your brains, and watched, hopefully, across the our greater galaxy. Lacey, what is going on? How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Just a lot going on.
Yeah.
I have to say the Kathleen Kennedy news is just it's not shocking to me. Like, we've been talking about this topic. We'll get into it, but we've been talking about this for years. So it's nothing new. And at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, sure. Why not? Like, I feel like we're very middle of the road about this compared to other people. But yeah,
say we're realistic and pragmatic.
Yeah, that I'm saying, like, I'm not emotionally driven by this news like some people are.
Yeah. We'll leave it there.
Yeah.
A few things before we get into our first segment. Obviously, the first thing you got to do, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your preferred app. Also, Nerdy and Nice, our other podcast. If you like us talking about Star Wars and you like other movies and TV and stuff like that, check out Nerdy and Nice on its own podcast feed, but also right on the TRB YouTube channel. So subscribe to both podcasts. It's free and it's a good time. So thank you for being a part of our show. And speaking of the new things we've been doing, trbpodcast.com, a lot of you have checked out our new merch and picked up our new merch. So thank you for that. And we're going to show you now, Lacey's going to show you what's next.
Oh, I thought that you had more to that sentence. Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit for video people, but for audio people, we have a new collection coming out this Friday, February 28th. I was just checking my calendar, February 28th at noon Eastern. We're launching our TRB Tokyo collection. So it's inspired by the upcoming Star Wars celebration. It is the TRB logo in wonderful shades of purple, just like the show. The event that's happening in April. And we have several different items. We have 2 t-shirts, a men's shirt and a women's shirt. We have this kind of windbreaker packable travel jacket and a crossbody bag for, taking on the convention floor, on travels, wherever the galaxy takes you. You can put your stuff in there. It has a nice cell phone pocket, all featuring our lovely logo. So it's cool stuff for you. It also supports the pod. And it's the next collection. So our first collection was Galactic Goonies, which John is wearing on the video right now. And this is our second one. So as we've been saying over the past few weeks, we've been working on stuff. This is some of the stuff. We have more to come, but I'm really pumped about this, and I can't wait to support all of this at the event.
Yeah, and this is going to run through the end of March. So all orders should be received because this new site we're with has been really just great so far. So
great customer service, really speedy, efficient shipping times. Yeah.
So you should get your things in time for celebration. And also, like Lacey was saying, the logo is unique in the fact that it has Japanese lettering at the bottom versus the Arabesh TRB. So it's this very unique period of time that anytime I'm going to put that shirt on or whatever I end up getting out of this collection, I'm going to think of the build up to end that Star Wars celebration. And also, I'll just say what's cool about it too is it's a true and true TRB shirt, bag, jacket. Like, it doesn't, it's not a celebration thing. So if you're not going to celebration, you can still rock it because it's going to be here for a very brief period of time and it's pretty damn cool. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and we also tried to pick items outside of the t-shirts, which we always have, which are awesome, and they're so soft and wonderful. But the bag and the jacket in particular, we tried to pick things that are good for traveling because a lot of people will be traveling like us to Japan. So the jacket can roll up to a small packable size, can go in a backpack or luggage, etc. And it's good. We're going springtime, late spring, early summertime to Japan, so it's good if it's rainy. And then again, the bag is great for, just being on the go.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody for checking that out. It should be noon tomorrow, being Friday, to start picking stuff up. And then a couple more quick announcements. We did on social media reveal our show that we'll be covering. We'll be going live again on April 23rd for 4 weeks only, thanks to Tony Gilroy and Lucasfilm and the structure of Andor, for our next show called the K2S Show. That's right, there it is. Logo designed for us by our very good friend Brian Ward. He is the best. But thank you to everybody, at least online, who really gave us a very positive reaction to the name of the show and the look of it. And yes, it's only going to be for 4 weeks, but I'm sure we'll have some fun. Right, Lacey?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this logo too. This is another one I know were really digging Galactic Goonies as our short series of TRB. This is no different, so stay tuned for more announcements with merch with this logo as well.
Yes. And then last but not least, our Patreon, patreon.com/TRB podcasts. A bunch of people have joined recently. I just saw someone joined right before we started recording. So thanks to everybody who's been supporting us there. It really allows us to keep doing this show. We both have families, we both have jobs, we both have real life, and being able to do this stuff is a great thanks to all of your support there. And we just did our first watch along. We watched Labyrinth. Jim Henson, George Lucas, Monty Python, all those greats in the mix to make that puppet extravaganza. And I had a great time watching it. So if you didn't join us live for it, it's right there on Patreon. All you have to do is pop on Labyrinth, pop on our watch along, and watch with us because it was really fun, especially the farts. So more.
And don't worry, whatever
watch-alongs to come.
version so it's in multiple places. You can watch it via renting your own version, like at home. It's on Hulu, not Disney Plus, surprising, and on Amazon. We watch the Amazon version. But we do throughout the movie put in time code at least 5 or 6 times throughout the movie. So if at any point you have an ad or something, we will check into where we are. So no worries.
And more watch-alongs to come, and we'll be refining that experience as we go. But that's it for that stuff. You're like, oh my God, just talk about Kathleen Kennedy already. And it's like, yeah, we're gonna. But first, it's time for Will of the Force.
I fear nothing, for all is as the Force wills it.
All right, guys. Will of the Force is back. So this is the part of the show that you get to take part in it if you're one of our patrons. So John was just talking about it, patreon.com/TRB podcasts. I won't go too much into it, but by supporting us $5 a month and up, you get to be a part of the show. And it supports what we're doing here, our dreams of being podcasters and content creators, and helps us do all kind of the administrative stuff, commission designs, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, this is the part that some of you get to submit questions and we give you a shout out and we talk about your answer. So it's or your question. So it's a will or will they not situation, if you will. So first up, we have Patreon submission from Commander Joey. What up, Joey? And he asks, will Attack of the Clones get a theatrical re-release for its 25th anniversary in 2027? A little closer to the present, will The Force Awakens get a theatrical re-release for its 10th anniversary this December? I'll start. I'm going to say yes to both. Disney and Lucasfilm like money. They made a ton of money on The Phantom Menace. They're about to make even more money on Revenge of the Sith because people love that movie more than Phantom Menace. Yes, they both will. I'm excited for probably the Force Awakens one more than Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. Force Awakens is such a wonderful time of being a Star Wars fan. It was such a like a really great theater experience for me.
Oh yeah.
And I would say it really kind of awakened my love for Star Wars again.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I had to, sorry. From a place that was probably a little dormant over time as you become a Star Wars fan and you're like, "Oh, well, there's nothing really going on now." And then they bought it and they had this new film coming out, and I think people forget how much money TFA made. You get to see Harrison Ford back on screen playing Han Solo, all the new creatures, droids, practical effects. It's just so wonderful, and I really look forward to it. John, what do you think?
Yes to Attack of the Clones. I think that'll follow the 25 pattern they've been doing with the prequels now. But no to The Force Awakens. I still think too soon. The Rey movie hasn't gotten into motion yet. I believe the recent reports were that they're targeting starting filming early next year. And then also just the fact that Avatar comes out in December, and it would depend on when they were looking to re-release it. I would imagine it'd be close to its original release time, and I don't know that Disney wants to like take people away from seeing Avatar to go
Cannibalize
see a
it.
10-year-old
Yeah,
Star
that's a
Wars
good
movie.
point.
So I'm going yes, Attack of the Clones in 2 years is going to be 2027. Holy cow! And no for now to Force Awakens, but it will make its return, of course.
Yep. Okay. I disagree with you, but okay. We'll see. We'll see who's right.
We will. We will see.
Next is a Patreon submission from Commander Andreas Blom. What up, man? He asks, will we ever get to see the first meeting between Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka in live action? For those of you that don't know, Luke and Ahsoka do see each other in The Mandalorian. However, we don't see their initial meeting. We
Or
see
Book of
once-
Boba Fett? Was it
Sorry, Book of Boba Fett. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Book of Boba. You're right.
It was The Mandalorian, though, let's be honest.
Mando Part 2,
Yeah.
which is what they called it. So we do see them together and have a conversation that's really nice, like, oh, you're just like your father, etc. But we don't get to see that initial interaction of like when they meet, hey, I'm this person's kid. Oh, you remember Anakin type, the realization of that. So that's what he is asking for people that might not know that piece. Some people listen and don't know all the inner workings of what happens. So, John, do you think we'll ever see it?
No, I don't. I am not sure, based on what they're doing now, where that would be shown, because everything is quote unquote present time, live time with the Mandoverse. So Ahsoka's chugging along to go forward. I doubt they're just going to be like, let's just do this flashback of them first meeting just because. So I don't think we will, and I don't necessarily think we need it. I don't mind that being one of the things that fans get to sort of create in their mind of how they would love that conversation to go. You know, I like some things being left to our imaginations. And I don't mind if they don't do it. If they do it, great. I'm sure it'll be impactful, emotional, have a lot of weight to it. But I just have this feeling that since they already showed them in live action, it sort of took the like wow factor away. So if you were gonna do it, you do that first somewhere, then have them meet later. So I'm gonna say no. I don't know. What do you think, Lacey?
I'm going to agree with you on this one. I don't think they're going to show it because they would have shown it already if they wanted to. Plus, I think Dave Filoni wanted to keep that as a private moment that like only he knows the truth. He likes to have those things close to himself of I know what happened with this character when. I agree with you completely that we've gotten to a place, especially with Star Wars, but in fandom in general, not just Star Wars, but like a lot of franchises where everybody wants every single thing explained and every little detail told to them. There's no kind of ambiguity of what could happen or headcanon or thank you so much. You know, just out in the open of what could have been. Like, what do you think? No personal interpretation. They're leaving every single detail filled in. So there's not that big connection to these stories.
Yeah.
Because people seem to forget that back in the day, one of the reasons Boba Fett was such a big character is because everybody had their own thoughts about him and what he could be and who he was and what did he do and what did he look like under the mask, and oh my gosh, and it created such a wonderful connection to that character because everybody had their own way of viewing them. And I think we're really losing that along the way with characters and stories in general.
good
Like
point.
they don't have to be fully explained.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So our last question for this segment will be tying into our new segment, which is when Kathleen Kennedy retires, will Dave Filoni be named her successor, John?
Oh, you should go first, I think.
I'm going to say yes. I think it's a pretty obvious choice. I think that that's always been the plan. There's a reason why, was it 2-3 years ago, he started doing the presentations at all these big shows like D23 and Star Wars Celebration. They've had him do all these interviews. They've had him in every project. His name is on every single thing that comes out now. There's a reason why they're putting him so front and center, and it's because I don't want to use the term grooming, but they're grooming him to take over for Kathleen. Plus, I think it would be the best way to somewhat save face with fans. I think there is kind of a turning point with some fans that I'm not saying here, I'm saying in general on the interwebs, that are already turning on Dave Filoni for whatever reason. So, but majority of fans do like him, trust him, think he's obviously the successor to George Lucas, who trained him, spoke to him, worked with him, is friends with him. He regularly consults George about certain things. That's kind of something he always brings up in interviews, is like, oh, did you talk to George about this? He's like, yes, I called George. We asked George for permission. And I think that was Jon Favreau's connection to George, was Dave. So
Yeah.
I don't see why they wouldn't choose him. I guess I would say, like, why would they skip over him unless he didn't want it? The only reason Dave's not going to get it is if he doesn't want it. John, what do you think?
I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is going to get a direct successor. I think Dave Filoni will get promoted to the highest ranking creative executive. And then they'll bring in an outside person who has had previous studio pedigree as an executive. I think it'll be a two-headed monster. You save face. Well, we'll talk about it more in a minute, but my short answer is sorta. But no, he won't be her successor.
Well, let's get into it then.
Let's do it.
It's the Resistance.
That's right. It's the Resistance Report. Harrison Ford. Always nice to hear old Harrison Ford.
He killed it over the weekend at the SAG Awards with his little joke of eating food, which, by the way, so many people didn't watch the whole clip and they were like, oh my God, he was caught on camera. He clearly planned it. Like, he clearly spoke with the actress ahead of time that he was doing this. Because at the end, he like does this little like moment where he like punches her and he's like, ah. But like, man, do I love his sense of humor. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's having a good time. Someone who's probably not having the greatest time in the past 24 hours is, well, maybe she is. Maybe she doesn't care.
Maybe she doesn't care. I would hope she doesn't.
In the best way, I mean that. You know what I'm saying? So Kathleen Kennedy, now the trades are getting involved. It's not YouTubers. It's not blog I've never heard of .org. I don't know.
Your mama loves Star Wars.
GeoCities no, all the big trades now are saying, based off of the initial report from Matt Bellany at Puck News, that she is stepping down as Lucasfilm president at the end of this year. So one more year to go. And then following reports led to speculation on what insiders and people connected to Lucasfilm and producers who went anonymously had to say about potential successors. So it's a
and people
lot
making stuff up. Can we just say that? There's definitely some making stuff up too.
Yes.
A lot of that. Yes. I'm also hearing this.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about that. Yeah. So, Lacey, I don't know where you want to like kick off with this thing. There's been a lot of different outlets reporting their own sort of version of this. But
Maybe start with what the news was. The news came from Puck News, which was what?
that Kathleen Kennedy will be leaving her post as Lucasfilm president at the end of 2025, and that there's seemingly no necessary replacement in line at the moment.
And she had only told people close to her.
Yeah.
Was that the initial story? Is that she had only told specific people in her family that she was stepping down by the end of the year. That was the initial story, which I feel was taken and then stretched out into a bigger thing than it was, which obviously it's developed over time. But initially, it was just that she's stepping down by the end of the year, told some people, this is what they're hearing.
Yes. And a big part of it, I'm just like looking through some of the notes I have on it.
Mhm.
So, like the article says, but while Kennedy's pending retirement might be drawing cheers from fans online, insiders say that replacing the seasoned executive will be rather difficult. Some in the industry, from studio managers to representatives, believe that the company's senior leadership has done a poor job in training and elevating a next generation of Padawan executives from which to potentially tap a replacement. And one of the reasons they say she stuck around so long, according to somebody who has many interactions with Lucasfilm leadership, is that there's no credible alternative, is the quote.
I mean, that's not surprising. If you look
Yeah.
at the trends of not just Lucasfilm, but of the job market in general, job positions that would be in probably older millennials now, and those people would have taken on those roles, are not getting them because certain age groups are not leaving the job market. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying those people need to leave the job market or should. I'm just saying the progression of people moving up into companies is not the same rate as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So you have people up at the top that just aren't leaving.
Yeah.
So nobody's getting the proper experience or training because those people up above them are not allowing them to have that experience.
And I'll say this too. we're not here saying we're experts or anything, but
No.
we've interviewed a bunch of people who've been a part of making current Star Wars, and part of the article that sort of threw me a bit, I believe from the Hollywood Reporter version, was them saying the details of the job itself, you have to be reminded that it's not a creative job in nature. Maybe only 10% of it is creative, and it's more blandly managerial. And I'm going to push back on that. And the one thing that really stands out to me, and Lacey, it might be probably coming to the top of your mind, is when the Obi-Wan composer, Natalie Holt, told us that
Yes.
Kathleen Kennedy specifically injected herself and said, we don't want you using playful music for Leia.
Childlike wonder music. She
So
wanted
Kathleen Kennedy was listening to the
strong,
music
yes,
and making
strong
decisions.
and
So, yeah.
feisty, she had said
Yeah.
to Natalie Holt. Yes.
So if Kathleen Kennedy, and this is from the composer who told us this, so that it
To our
really
face,
happened.
yes.
Yeah. No reason for her to make that up. Because she's still working with Disney with Loki, and she's it's not one of these
Killing it.
He's not one of these jilted employees or whatever. But anyway, needless to say, if in my mind, logically, if Kathleen Kennedy has her hands in the clay when it comes to telling composers what style to do things in for a supporting character, Kathleen Kennedy's very involved in the creative process of what's
We
going
know
on.
she was.
Yeah,
Because
and
we
there's a
see her
reason.
in The Director and the Jedi, the Skywalker Legacy
Yes.
documentary, where they
Yes.
talked about like how they should handle certain things, Ben
Yeah.
Solo's death, all these things. They mention that she had a say in it. And
Yeah,
not only that,
yeah.
anytime these people get interviewed, they say, oh, well, Kathleen was very much involved. I believe
Right.
we talked to Christopher Ford, and he said the same thing. Like John
Yeah.
and Dave were involved, and also Kathleen was involved. So, yes, I agree. That's a little bit of a misstep and a misstatement to say that it's only 10% creative, because she is very much involved. And I think even going back to 2022, was it 2022 she said this? No, 2023, when she was basically kind of backtracking on a bunch of different things and projects and saying, oh, this wasn't happening and this never happened. That's not true. It was
Yeah.
happening.
Oh, like the Feige movie and
Yeah, I just feel like all of a sudden they're doing this kind of backtrack of like, oh, she wasn't as involved as everybody thinks she was. And I think that's a disservice to what she's done because she
I
clearly
agree.
has been involved.
Yeah, it's a position of weakness from whoever is putting those quotes out.
Running the
and
narrative.
I
Yeah.
don't think that's right or accurate. So that part threw me a bit. And then I think Jeff Snyder put stuff out about that the reason for her not leaving after her contract that ran through the end of 2024 was that she was initially looking to make the move with Frank Marshall, her husband, to creating an AI production company. Now that's a rumor from Jeff Snyder. I haven't seen that anywhere else. So take that however you want to
Also,
take that.
AI production company, really?
So that's what I'm saying. We don't know if that's true or
Ugh.
not, but his rumor or his report is saying that his sources told him that she asked for an extension because there wasn't a market for that. And they're like Hollywood Reporter was saying, there didn't seem to be an obvious, credible alternative to replace her at the time. So it almost feels a little like Bob Iger sort of screwing up by picking Chapek, and maybe it wasn't the right time to leave yet, and it wasn't the right person. So Kathleen gets the push for another year. Either way, the connective tissue on all of these stories are that her contract ran out, not ran
She's
out,
leaving.
her contract expired at the end of 2024. She was staying on for a longer period of time, and now they're all saying it's happening at the end of this year, her leaving her post. So she'll have done 13 years as president of Lucasfilm. That is a long time. She's about to be 72 years old. It sounds like from all these other reports is that she's not retiring. That's another thing I heard was that she's retiring. It sounds like Kathleen Kennedy is moving on down the road to her next adventure. And good for her. I think that's great. And my thoughts on it aren't victory celebration end of Return of the Jedi like it might be for some fans. But it's also not devastated, drop to your knees and screaming in the middle of the street like we've seen. Mine is great run. I loved all the movies they made. I like most of the shows. I'm glad that this happened. Otherwise, there'd be no Star Wars. I think time will be good to Kathleen Kennedy the way I continually say time will be good to these movies that have been coming out. You always remember what exists as opposed to a narrative. Narratives aren't forever, but the material is. And as we've seen over time, whether it's the prequels or even some of the other stuff like Clone Wars that wasn't met very well early on, now is loved by the generation that grew up with it. Same thing's going to happen to this stuff, which is in turn going to happen to her legacy as Lucasfilm president. So I think in the end, it's going to be flowers for Kathleen Kennedy as time moves on. There are going to be people saying like, get her out of here. Yeah, this is amazing.
They've
It's
been
like,
saying
all
that
right,
for how
you know.
many years? Like
I know,
7
and it's you're going to get your wish, I guess, but let's not forget, if you are jumping for joy that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving, there's never a guarantee that what is next is going to be better. So
True.
be careful what you wish for sometimes, because I've seen that happen with baseball managers or
I
players.
mean, it happened with
and
George. People were saying, "Oh, good, George is gone.
Get rid of
oh."
him. Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, George is coming back."
Oh, those are my favorite when I see people online saying like they're going to bring George back. I'm like, do people forget that George Lucas is like 81 years old and
he
has
sold it.
zero interest
Bye.
in zero interest in working with a studio.
Bananas.
So I've said a lot, Lacey. I want to get you in here. I have my thoughts on who could get the gig, but I want to get more of your thoughts on this, and let's just I don't know, have an open chat about it.
I mean, I think my thoughts are similar to yours, given that I was chiming in here and there. I don't think that this is at all them firing her. There were some stories that pointed to a strong urging for her to move on. I
Mhm.
don't think that's unheard of. I think, if the business isn't doing as well as they'd like it to do, so whether you want to accept it or not, Acolyte did not do that great. Obi-Wan didn't do great. Andor didn't do that great. Skeleton Crew didn't do that great. If you look at the numbers, they're not getting the same bang for their buck, so to speak, as they did for Rogue One, TFA, Solo, The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. Like, they're not getting these big billion-dollar box office numbers. They're getting decent size turnout. They got a big kind of push with the first season of The Mandalorian and into the second season, but I'm not surprised that, they're looking to transition to someone else. And I don't think that necessarily means that because there were a couple missteps here and there, and we strongly believe that Solo was a misstep in the sense of it was not marketed well, etc. I don't think those missteps speak to the whole length of the legacy of Kathleen Kennedy and what she's done for Lucasfilm. I don't think you can look at everything that she's done and then a couple things you don't agree with means that everything she did is garbage. That's not accurate. And I think that we've gotten to such a polarized position across fandom of, oh, well, if you think she's awesome, then clearly you're a moron because you don't like this. Like, how could you like this, this, and this? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if she's transitioning out, even if it's at an urging of Disney, okay, that's understandable. Things aren't going the way that they probably want them to. They aren't getting the great attention that they want from this, like, Netflix is for Stranger Things or something like that.
Oh yeah.
They could probably be like, hey, you know what? We'd like to go in another direction. Just like Kathleen Kennedy and executives at Lucasfilm have done to other creatives so far. We've had numerous directors and people say, hey, we're Damon Lindelof. We're going in another direction. We're going in another creative way.
Lord and Miller mid-movie.
Lord, yes. So it doesn't surprise me that they could potentially be doing that to her as well. That being said, I wish her the best of luck. I think she's going to do great things no matter what she ends up doing, whether she retires or not. If I was her and I had her career and probably the amount of money that she's making, I'd be retiring for good. Like, bye. I'm going on an island somewhere. Like, you'll never hear from me again.
Well, yeah.
But that's just me. But I'm not. That is not a reflection of what she decides to do with her life. I'm just speaking on myself. I do think that the obvious choice, like we said earlier, for her, the next person or persons to kind of drive where Lucasfilm goes next is Dave Filoni. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how I feel about that because we've had conversations about Dave Filoni and kind of his one-track mind when it comes to Ahsoka, seemingly. So I'm not exactly sure what that would mean for Lucasfilm. I think sometimes Dave Filoni tends to get down in the weeds of like lore and like all these other things, which sometimes is wonderful, but sometimes you just want a Skeleton Crew show that doesn't have crazy connections to everything else in the universe. You
but
just want to have
if you want them, they're there,
Sure. But I mean, like, Ahsoka has like a bigger piece of the puzzle and all these other books and stuff connect into it and Easter eggs and stuff like that. Anyway, I do love Dave Filoni. I think he would do an amazing job. I would hope that he's a piece of what's going to happen because I think he's really driving kind of the lore of Star Wars and sticking by what George would have wanted. But I don't think he's necessarily the right person for maybe the business side. He's more on the creative end.
Yeah.
So I don't know who would take up that business side. We talked about this, I believe, either last week or the week before. I agree with you when you said, John, that it should be someone from the outside. I agree. I don't think it should be someone from the inside. Bring in someone else.
Yeah. For so many reasons, especially, you have to step outside of the online bubble of fandom. Because for all the haters out there, there's also a really large pocket of people who I personally think aren't being completely honest, and they'll just say that every single thing made under the Star Wars banner is great. And it's like,
we know for a fact that people are doing that.
Yeah. So
like, if we're being honest, we know people are doing that.
Yeah, and that's fine, but like when you step outside and look at the grand picture of all fans, it's clear that some people have said like, all right, I'm putting Star Wars on the shelf for a while. Like the numbers show it with The Acolyte, Andor's numbers. Ahsoka had mixed reaction. Its number one episode was the one where Anakin Skywalker came back.
That
So
was
the
my
prequel
favorite
kids came back
episode,
and watched
so
that
I
one.
guess I'm guilty.
Skeleton Crew, which I absolutely loved.
loved
and
it.
I like all these shows in varying degrees, don't get me wrong, but Skeleton Crew I absolutely loved. Didn't do well from a viewership standpoint. So it seems like people are like, all right, I've seen the Star Wars TV stuff. Outside of Mando, it doesn't seem like it's pulling in the general population. It needs to go back to
I showed
movie
Matt Andor. Matt, he loves spy stuff. He loves James Bond. He loves espionage, thrillers. Like that should have been his show to watch. He got bored in the first 10 minutes. He was out.
Yeah, and not everyone's gonna love Andor. We are gonna talk
Yeah.
about the season 2 trailer in our next segment, of course.
I'm just saying someone general like that it's not attracting people that don't like Star Wars.
Yeah, like my brother didn't watch Andor. He didn't.
Yeah.
He tried Acolyte, bailed. He liked Skeleton Crew, so he's always
Yeah.
my barometer for a casual fan.
I
But
didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
no, it's fine. They got to go back to the movie theaters. Star Wars is a movie franchise first, and it always will be. One thing I'll say too is I know people who are saying like, well, Filoni should do it. George did it, and he was a creative. It's like the game has changed. So like look at James Gunn. He has Zaslav. He's not just doing the thing by himself. And James Gunn has a more padded resume than Dave Filoni. He's directed billion-dollar movies, and Dave Filoni hasn't directed any live-action movies.
I think he also accepted that he was going to have to take on more of a business role, like a Kevin Feige. Like I think they prepped him for that. Because I would say Feige's probably the perfect example of someone that is a creative / business person.
Yep. And Filoni isn't an executive, so I think that would be a bad decision to have him just step in and do that. So I think my guess on what they're going to do is they're going to bring in someone who has a proven pedigree outside of Lucasfilm for a few reasons. One, if you promote up, and this is nothing against anyone else who's there, but just from how businesses are and the optics of things in corporate world, in sports, in entertainment, anywhere, you just promote, if things aren't going great with your general consumers and you just promote up, they're just like, oh, it's more of the same. It's just that person has less experience. I'm not excited about this. So shareholders are not going to want to see that. So I'm ruling out a promote up on the executive side. Those people may keep their jobs, may not. I don't know. But I don't think they're going to promote up. That's just my guess. So I think they'll bring in someone from the outside. And I looked at the list in the Hollywood Reporter's article on it, and they suggested a bunch of people that had their names circling around regarding this story. And the one that stood out to me was Emma Watts. So she was the longtime president of production at 20th Century Fox, who eventually got bought up by Disney. And then she was in charge of shepherding the X-Men franchise. She launched Deadpool, and she was the president of production for the Avatar movies for James Cameron. Big time stuff. Big, successful, massive, big time stuff.
Great choice.
And she's been laying in the weeds since she left that post, maybe looking for that next big opportunity. She's done the big franchise stuff, Deadpool, X-Men. She knows how to do that nerdy stuff, and also Avatar, which is the king of the box office. Star Wars, I never saw it as a box office like king, even though the first movie crushes everything based on inflation. But it would be nice to get muscle back there, and having a name like that would be huge. Then, plus you also get a female voice still at the executive head that you pair with Filoni as your face. That's why D23, Filoni was the one walking out on stage. It wasn't Kathleen Kennedy. It was a test run, I think. Yeah, to see what people think about him. So I think it's two-headed monster.
He's been taking his hat off a lot.
Grooming the hair, trimming the beard.
Yeah.
It might get a little whiter with more stress, I should know. But so I think executive from the outside, I'm liking Emma Watts as my pick. And then add Filoni as the creative head. And then you have this sort of two-headed monster. Let Filoni be the PR, the face. She'll be in the background, but making all the big-time decisions, which she clearly has a resume for. So those are my picks. And then my last thought on Kathleen Kennedy is, to round it out, it's nuanced. Like I've said many times before when this rumor keeps coming up, I really like everything that she did. I think there were obviously a lot of mistakes and missteps and the solo stuff, and it seems like marketing's an issue with recent things, and that all comes top down
Marketing's like
ultimately.
really all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think it's time for a new voice, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate everything she did. And I think there was a lot of good, and I think it's going to age really well. I think it's just a time for a new voice, a new head, a new lead, a new direction. And it's a perfect time now because you're about to kick off the next era in movies. The Skywalker saga's over. And what an impossible task that was for her. So I think Kathleen Kennedy deserves more credit. She has thick skin because the amount of things that have been flung her way, that whether they are or not her fault, she handles it with grace. She's never caused problems. She's never said anything controversial. She's a professional and one of the greatest movie producers of all time. And I would hope to think, which is what they're alluding to, is that she's going to still continue on to produce some of the future Star Wars movies. And you always like Kathleen Kennedy as a producer. So I think ultimately it will be a good, positive feeling because it's not a, in my vantage point anyway, like finally, like we're saved. I think it's no, that happened, that era happened. We're going to remember that era. And I think there's more good than bad there, but it's also time to move to the next voice, the next era.
Imagine putting your energy every day into the downfall of another person. Like I can't even understand like how exhausting that must be to constantly be like, today's the day this person's gonna fail. Like that's just such a dark place to be. And I will say every time I see it online, I'm like, this is a dark spot, man. Like I can understand not wanting someone to work somewhere anymore and wanting them to like maybe step down, but the general everyday push for someone to fail and like photoshopping like red dots on people's eyes and stuff, like that is a dark place to be. So hopefully whatever the change is a good one that kind of starts, like you said, a new era that people can kind of step in a new direction. Sadly, I think that there's always going to be a piece of the fandom interwebs that are going to hate no matter what. I see it every day where they're like, nothing they make is good. And I'm like, then you're not a fan, man. Like you're not.
I know, just
you don't
it's okay
like
to let
it
go.
Just
it's okay
say
to let go.
goodbye.
Yeah.
Just say goodbye. Just it's all right.
Let Wilson
okay.
float away. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Every time I see that, I'm like, I just want to be like, are you okay?
That's what you got to remember. Like, not to get too deep on that stuff because I want to move on to our next segments before we talk Andor. But no happy or satisfied person is doing things like that. So you know that it has to come from a place of people who are unhappy with their lives, or they just, have some sense of lack of satisfaction. So they want to take people who are happy and are successful down. And whatever, just they'll have their moment. Then there'll be a new president. They'll probably hate that person too.
That's what I'm saying. So I am totally on board with the idea that Kathleen has done a good job to an extent. There are things I really don't agree with that she decided to do or the company decided to do. That's okay. I'm excited for someone new to come in and do something different, whether it's good or bad, it's something different. But I'm not rooting for her downfall. I'm not rooting for her to do a bad job. I'm not telling her how terrible she is because that would be false, because what she's done hasn't been 100% terrible. Like you can still say, hey, there are these 4 things she did that I don't agree with, or she said this thing once that I'm like, I don't like that. But that doesn't mean she as a person is a bad person. I think there's, as always, I am saying there needs to be a separation. I know I'm just talking to a wall with some people, like nobody cares, and that's fine. But yeah, let's go on to some stuff that people can all collectively be excited for, which is our next story.
Yeah, so Revenge of the Sith, as many have guessed, is making its return to theaters for its 20th anniversary this year. Lacey, I know Revenge of the Sith isn't one of your favorites, but a Star Wars movie returning to theaters is always a very cool thing, and it's hopping back in theaters right after Star Wars Celebration on April 25th. It's also going to be available in 4DX for the first time. So there's going to be this is probably the most excited George Lucas has been about Star Wars in a while, because he's all about the latest technology and upgrading his movies to the latest technology. So seeing one of his movies that he made, he wrote, he directed, getting a 4DX treatment, I bet somewhere he's really happy about this release.
He'll probably go see it, or he's already seen it.
Yeah, He's like, I've seen the 4DX cut. He's like, can I make some changes? They're like,
he's seen the 8DX cut.
They're like, no, George, no more cuts. So what do you make of this? Do you think we should check it out for old time's sake? Do you think there may be a showing during Celebration? What are your thoughts on the return of a movie that has really grown in popularity since its release?
I guess I'd have to see what my schedule is that week, because we would just be getting back from being away for a week.
Still have jet lag.
My two children. No, my two children will be without me for a week. So I feel like I'm like, hey, go to the movies.
I don't know.
I'm going to feel really bad
to see Revenge of the Sith. I do want him to see
dark.
it, but in the theater, that's a tough one. Phantom Menace is more playful and light.
You've been a better fan than I have. You saw Return of the Jedi in the theater. You saw Phantom Menace in the theater. I didn't see either of those because I was having children and just like being exhausted. So would I like to see this in the theater? Sure. Am I going to? Probably not, just given the timing. If it was happening maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, maybe, but I can't realistically as a parent go away for a week to Japan and then come back and be like, by the way, I'm going to the movies. Like Matt, I think would lose it if I was like, I'm going to go away for like 4 hours.
Yeah. And well, speaking of Matt's, very popular artist, graphic designer, artist, Matt Ferguson created a brand new poster, which is very cool for the 20th anniversary. So I'm sure those will be available after the Revenge of the Sith panel that they do.
Or the IMAX screening. Yeah, they had him this past year at the Return of the Jedi one. We got the poster for it.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're probably going to have this at Celebration. Yes, I guarantee they will.
Very cool stuff. And then our last story before we get into the Andor trailer, Hasbro has put out their latest. And I'm going to hand it over to Lacey because I really have not paid attention much to a lot of the merch. I saw the email and I skimmed through it. But Lacey, what are the things that stood out from you on Hasbro's latest? Would they have a stream? Was it?
They had a fan stream. Yep.
The fan stream, yeah.
Every time I see their name now, I just think Hasbro.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a couple cool things on here per usual. They had clones, they had Mandalorian, and they had vintage collection, which are the big things that they always push now. I'm, still rooting for a Ben Solo figure. Maybe eventually I'll get one of those, probably not. But they know where their money is made. I was surprised to see a couple figures. They have a Cassian Andor figure coming out. Which is coming out. Let me make sure I have the right time. It is coming out on pre-order for March 5th. And it's going to be available summer 2025. So this year, this summer, which is closer to when the show comes out. At least it's not saying, summer 2026.
Right.
They're doing the Cinar test pilot, which I'm assuming is the type of ship he's flying in that cool new outfit figure. And they're also doing a director Orson Krennic figure, which, by the way, my phone auto-corrected my tweet to Orsum. I know his name is Orson. I had like 16 people correct me. I know that's what his name is. My phone, for some reason, auto-corrected. It happens, whatever. The one figure I definitely was the most excited for was the R2-D2 Revenge of the Sith, which they're doing kind of a collective Revenge of the Sith set of figures, which are Walmart exclusives. Walmart's having a March fandom sale. Good luck. I know that Walmart is notorious for canceling orders, for packaging figures in bubble wrap mailers so that they get smashed in mailing.
Oh, and
good luck
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Best of luck. But they have a R2-D2 with the rockets, which they've never done before.
There you go.
For Revenge of the Sith, which is really cool. He like boosts up and it has little rockets. I think that was the thing I was most excited for. Other than that, they do have a Moff Gideon. They have an Imperial Praetorian Guard from the season finale of Mandalorian season 3, which they're finally getting around to. And then they have a 501st Legion clone trooper helmet. The other thing that was very standout was the vintage collection land speeder, which is cool. I used to have one of those. I actually just got rid of it recently. But yeah, I mean, it's all cool, but again, like you said, the price points are $24.99. The helmet's $99.99, $24.99. You look at this, you're like, who's affording $24.99 figures each? That's kind of bananas. But then I sent you a clip, John, from the CEO of Hasbro, who said on a recent Bloomberg conference that their median customer is 13 years plus.
Right.
So, he had stated he was basically very proud of that fact, and they're proud of how they've gotten to that point that that's their consumer age. But I don't know, as a toy company, if I'd be so proud that I've basically priced children out of my toys.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. Yeah, what that's
it's
based
a
on.
weird spot, but that's what they're putting out there publicly to the press, that they're proud of that. But it shows in that, years ago when they did the Mando Mondays for the first time and they made all that money with Mandalorian toys, they're just kind of banking on that. So we'll see what happens. As always, they're using the same molds they've used over time and just reprinting them with different paint or updated articulation, which is fine for collectors that are really into that. I'm happy for you. As someone that likes the weird stuff that you get once in a while, like all the solo creatures that no one ever touched. I would love something different besides troopers. It's like troopers, and when your priority is world building, there's other things in the galaxy besides stormtroopers. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Toy Fair's coming out this weekend. Maybe they'll announce something else this weekend, but for now, none of this stuff was really kind of surprising to me, I would say.
All right,
As
right on.
for Celebration, which is coming up, they did announce the art show last week with, I believe, pre-orders for art pieces being March 5th. You have to pick up on site, obviously. And then they also announced the Road to Celebration pin set this year with a new artist. And I'm going to be honest, I think this might be the worst pin set they've ever done.
Jeez, negative Nancy today.
I'm sorry. I'm a big person about like the pins. I love the pin set and the pin trading that they've done over the years. I'm not digging the design this year. I'm not into it. I feel like the design for the pins in previous years has been more detailed and more kind of, I don't know. That being said, though, I will admit my favorite set will always be 2016's emoji set. I think that's the best set they've ever done, and they've never released it ever again. But I truly value and cherish my crying Anakin emoji pin.
Very cool. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the Andor trailer?
I think it's time.
All right, let's do it.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right, the Andor trailer is here. Every day, people are like, where's the Andor trailer? Where's the Andor trailer? And I'm like, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was like, it'll be here when it's here, man. Like, I don't know why. Sometimes I get hyped up. I think with movie trailers, because I also know where the story's going, I was like, gotta see the trailer to see what's going to happen. We kind of know what's going on. And that's part of my theme on this discussion about the trailer. But Lacey, we're not doing a walkthrough or frame by frame or anything like that. But what were your thoughts what were your initial thoughts after watching the Andor trailer? And then we can dig into some speculation and stuff like that.
The back walks are back. They love that shot of the person walking away from the camera showing their back. They obviously cut between the different characters. They've done that before. They really love that. They're really obviously pushing the critically acclaimed side of things. They're hoping that kind of, in fact, the first line on the trailer in the description is the critically acclaimed series returns. They're really pushing into that they're like, hey, you might not have watched this, but everybody said it was amazing. The problem is nowadays that while critics can say something's amazing, if it doesn't translate into the general population and people aren't talking about it via word of mouth, then no one's watching it. So while I understand why they pushed with the like Rolling Stone said this, the Rap said this, I don't think that's necessarily what's going to translate well with general audiences. That being said, it looks beautiful. The hype is definitely there for me. I'm excited to see where this series is going to go, knowing what the ending is going to be. I
Mhm.
love the arc piece of it where they give you 3 episodes each week. I know some people
Yes.
are really dreading that. I love that, because one of my biggest critiques with Skeleton Crew, with Acolyte, and other series has been that there are episodes sometimes that should have kept going. Like, they cut them so short that you lose the momentum of the story and the character development because they're like, "Well, this is this episode. Next week, check in." And you're like, "Okay, well, these 3 episodes could have been 1 episode. Why'd you break it up?" And you realize that it's probably a business decision. Um, and I'm not saying Disney Plus is the only one that falls for that. We just saw that with Squid Game too, as like some of the episodes I was like, "Why didn't they just make this 2 episodes into 1? Why did it have to be specifically 8 episodes?" But yeah, I'm really loving that. I think the most hype I felt in the trailer, weirdly enough, is seeing Orson Krennic. I was so excited to see Ben Mendelsohn again. He is such a good villain. And seeing K2SO.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed him so much in season 1, and I understand why he wasn't in it, but man, am I so hyped to see him in this trailer and to know that that kind of relationship is coming.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's I mean, I don't think the viewership necessarily is going to matter for Andor, and I don't care about it. You know, I just want to see a good Star Wars show, and with this show and what it needs to do is just, like we always say, land the plane, wedge us right up to Rogue One. We know that the last shot of this show is going to be him landing on the Ring of Kafrene and walking in to that complex. It's going to go right into his intro into Rogue One. It's going to be beautiful. People are going to love that. But I think the trailer was the only thing I didn't like about the trailer was the music. I know what they're going for. They did it with Skeleton Crew. I think it's misguided. I don't know. It's not a big deal either, and I understand that. But it's hard for me to watch Star Wars with contemporary music because it makes me feel like I'm not traveling to a galaxy far, far away. And it's just a little nitpick. That's really my only problem with the
Skeleton
trailer.
Crew had Huttese though. Like at least they took it and made
True.
it part of the
Yeah.
universe.
And I am a relatively intelligent person, so I understand that song had a rebellious theme to it. Don't need that explained to me. I just don't.
You mean you don't want 16 comments telling you, "Oh, do you know what the song is, John?"
Yeah, people are like, wait, don't you get it though? It's a rebellious song. I'm like, yeah, so is the Star Wars theme. But that's my only nitpick. It looks great. Like, here's the thing. We don't really need a trailer for Andor Season 2. We know what we're getting. We know it's going to look great. We know it's going to be acted incredibly. We know the story is going to be well woven. And we know that Tony Gilroy is still the one operating. So this trailer isn't for the purpose of saying, like, we want to show you what we did on this season of Andor Season 2. It's like, no, we know the connective tissue. We know what we're getting. We know it's going to be great. We know critics are going to salivate watching this show. And we know fans who love the gritty end of Star Wars and timely now, without getting too specific, I think this is really going to resonate with more people. I don't know if that'll translate to more viewers, but it may hit nerves with people in a way that season 1 didn't, especially with the things that are going to happen in this season, which leads me to my next point. I love Krennic, love K2, love that we're getting closer to Rogue One, seeing the Death Star a little less completed. The dish isn't in there yet. We see that happen in Rogue One. Love all that. Mendelsohn's just going to add an extra entire element to the show, and he's definitely going to have Daedra killed if he doesn't do it himself. But I was thinking about the timeline on this, and I was like, what is happening around this time? And I remember the whole the Gorman massacre that takes place to BBY. It's talked about in Rebels, of course, and I think like what the Gorman massacre is protesters to the Empire get just like blown out of the sky. They just get killed. All peaceful protesters all get murdered, and that's what triggers Mon Mothma to leave the Senate and speak out against Palpatine. So I think what we're seeing in this trailer, all those people like dancing and stuff, and like Free Spirit, Flower Childs, I think those are the protesters possibly. I think we're gonna see the Gorman massacre, which leads me to several things. So the person who ordered the Gorman massacre is Tarkin. So, and I think, what did they call it? I looked it up on Wikipedia because I saw there was this great article from IO9. Whitbrook, I think his name was. I forget his name. But I remember the Gorman massacre, and I like looked it up. I Googled it, and this article came up from IO9. And they said the Tarkin doctrine is what put in place this whole like wiping out these populations in an effort to stifle protest and put fear into people from protesting. So this is going to prove to me that Tarkin's going to be in the show. We're going to see him. It's a very expensive character to make, but I think he'll even look better than he did in Rogue One. He'll be in the show briefly to make the cameo, of course, to set off this in motion. These things are going to happen. And then Mon Mothma, we may even see her speech that she gives to the Senate, saying that Palpatine is an evil emperor, and then she goes off into hiding, and then we're going to see her put on her white cloak, cut her hair, get rid of the makeup. But I also think this means that her daughter and, to a lesser extent of caring, her husband are going to get killed in the Gorman massacre. I have a feeling that her daughter's wedding is going to take place on Gorman, and they could get killed in these attacks. And that would make sense that we never hear about Mon Mothma's family in the original trilogy. She's sort of this, like, just rebellion is her whole existence. It would make sense that her family gets killed to set her off on that final step to really wanting to face fear and look at Palpatine in the eye, so to speak, and say, you are evil. I don't stand for this. I'm going to start a rebellion. I'm calling on all systems to get pockets together and let's do this. So I think that's what might happen. So I think we're getting Tarkin. I think that's the Gorman massacre is going to happen. And then the other part of this, I saw a bunch of people online saying that Kansas-looking planet that looks like a cornfields or whatever, or wheat fields.
Looks like Lothal.
People are saying Lothal. I don't think it's Lothal. I don't think the Filoni stuff is going to really touch too heavily in here. A lot of people are saying Dantooine, which you remember that's the planet that Leia gave up as. That's where the rebel base is.
Everyone's on Dantooine.
Yeah. So we are going to see them on Dantooine, and that's where they take Mothma after she gives her speech to protect her. So there's going to be a battle on Dantooine between people who follow the scent and the person who helps take Mothma to Dantooine, Bail Organa. So I think Jimmy Smits is going to be in Andor season 2 as well. And I think we're going to see him take her to Dantooine. So all these things that are known in canon based on her backstory, we're going to see. So I think in the trailer, we are seeing parts of each act, each chapter. I think the Gorn massacre is going to happen in the third set of episodes, and then the last 3 episodes are going to be when she goes to Dantooine, post-speech, and we see everyone's story sort of tie up. I think the last 3 episodes are going, like the big major climax is going to happen in episodes 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9. And that massacre is going to occur. They're going to take her away, and then Cassian's going to go off to the Ring of Kafrene. Overall, I think it was a good trailer, not a great trailer. But the only thing, and I want your thoughts on this, Lacey, because I've been talking a lot, is with the contemporary music, and there's clearly not a lighter tone, but a more spirited tone in this trailer than we're familiar with Andor. I don't think the show's going to have that at all. But I think they are trying to do what you said, which is reach the audiences who didn't watch the first season, bring the familiar things in. You're seeing Death Star, you're seeing that guy Krennic, you're seeing K2SO. There's the contemporary music that is more uplifting and positive, and we're seeing explosions. We're seeing Cassian do the classic action movie walk away from the detonation trick. We're seeing all those little things. I still think the show's going to have the darkness of season 1, but with maybe a little more hope. But I think the trailer was designed not for people who are diehards, because they know they're all going to watch it anyway. The contemporary music and all the other tricks and twists and turns in this trailer were an effort to pull more people in. So what do you think?
I am excited for the show. I'm going to start with there. I think this show looks great. I think there's a lot of clips throughout this that they're interlacing different storylines and doing clever editing to make you think like, oh, this is what this person's looking at. This is what this person's who this person's talking to. Overall, I'm gonna be honest, it's not even the music, and I guess tonight's gonna be a negative Nancy night for me, but this trailer's not good. Like, this trailer has no storyline to it. It gives you no progress of where this season is going. I wouldn't even call this a trailer. It's a montage. It's a pull quote montage. They are pulling quotes from the press with montage-y clips of the characters with a fun song. I would not call it necessarily a trailer. Like, despite our jokes often on this show and then also on Nerdy and Nice when it comes to trailers, they tend to follow this like dun 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 funny line, dun 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 serious line, dun 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 big moment, dun joke at the end. Like, they usually follow that template. This trailer has what, 2 lines in it? Just Saw Gerrera at the end, and then like one person at the beginning.
Cassian at the beginning. Do you want to
And
fight
then
or do you want to win?
Yeah, and then Saw at the end, which again, great lines, wonderful lines, but give me some type of trailer. I'm a strong believer in trailers, and editing in general is a work of art. And we've gotten into, not just in this, but in general with Hollywood studios, into this lazy editing style of, oh, we'll just throw all this stuff together, and because it's a ship blasting something, people are going to lose it, which, to their defense, people did lose it seeing this trailer. They're like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Sure, the show looks awesome. I agree. But this trailer gave me nothing. It showed me some stuff. It showed me that things are going to happen, but it didn't give me any gripping tale of like, I need to watch this. And if I wasn't a diehard Star Wars fan like I am, I would look at this and be like, okay, what is this even about? Like, I feel like trailers has just become montages instead of something that grips you with a storyline and some really important moments. With trailers are meant to be like mini stories, like mini tales of what it is you're going to watch. And I think they've turned into more of like, yeah, it's turned into more of a commercial. But away from that, that was my rant. I'm done there. So I'm moving on. The things I liked about this trailer is I think that, again, all the acting in this show is so strong. Every character is just top of their game. It's awesome. I think the dancing stuff with Mon Mothma is clearly her daughter's wedding. There's like paper mache kind of flower puffs on the wall. It's very kind of everyone's having a great time. It just seems like that's her daughter's wedding. They do a tricky editing through a different kind of party scenario in Coruscant at nighttime. So they have daytime her having this wedding with her daughter, and then at nighttime it looks like her and Perrin are at some type of event with this droid that's like scanning people's identities. And I think that's the event that she sees Krennic at. Because they do have her speaking to Krennic, and she has these kind of long earrings on. And then in the wedding, she's not. She's very like no jewelry, basic kind of, and I say basic, it's still a gorgeous gown. Like that brown kind of orangey silk gown, but like her hair is very kind of loose and curly, whereas she usually has this kind of slick back look when she's in Coruscant. Other than that, the thing that stood out to me was, it seems like you said it's kind of 3 or 4 different locations that they're intercutting between. I'm sure they're each big moments and maybe each of the arcs. I do think the new ship that he's flying, which is that Centaur thing from Hasbro, they said it was that he was piloting, is really cool. The ship. I am excited at the idea that we're going to see different planets that we haven't seen before that have been referenced in other Star Wars movies and
Yeah.
shows. That's always cool, as long as it's not a desert.
'Cause Dantooine was originally going to be used in Rogue One, I think. And
Was
they didn't
it?
do it. Yeah. So maybe they had it. You know how we always say, whether it's a puppet or something that, things find a home eventually.
They do.
I
Yeah.
think the Doug Chang or whoever mocked up the stuff for Dantooine was probably well preserved somewhere. And they're like, now's the time.
Hmm. I do think that we see clearly a rebellion base get kind of left behind with the dead body kind of at 45 seconds where they're it's a nice shot which then pans up to the sky or tilts up to the sky. It's not a pan, it's a tilt. To the quote from Rolling Stone, and you see the ship's takeaway with the dead body laying there. I'm pretty sure that that's telling you like, hey, they're ditching that base. Like they have to constantly be moving, which we see later in Star Wars movies and the sequel trilogy as well. Yeah,
Always the narrow escape.
I know. Yeah. I'm excited for the show to be back. I can't wait to see where it goes. Like you said, I think there is a lot of parallel real life undertones here that are not a surprise to anyone. We got that in the first season. Tony Gilroy recently did an interview that said like, yes, I am calling to this country, this country, this country. What is happening here? Yes, this is from this. So, I'm sure we're going to see reactions that are like, this is too close to home or this is too political. Like, if you're going to pick a show to be political about, like Andor is it. this
Right.
this is the they're trying to overthrow the empire. So
It's like
there's
watching
not
House
really.
of Cards and be like, what's with all the politics, pal?
Oh my God, why are there so many congressmen? Or like West Wing. Why is there a president in this?
Why is Elaine from Seinfeld vice president in this other show? What is
I
going
gotta
on
watch
here?
Veep, by the way. I heard
Me
Veep's
too.
very good.
I know.
But overall, yeah, like I'm really excited for the show. I get let down sometimes by these trailers because I feel like it's just lazy editing. Like you couldn't
what?
give me some type of story. I really appreciate a very good trailer and the time it takes to build that. Yeah, I'm hoping we get something else for this.
So I don't think this is the
The
greatest
music
trailer.
didn't bother me, but it was just a
really?
montage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't the greatest trailer in the world, but like I was saying before, for me, I didn't need a trailer for Andor season 2. We know what Tony Gilroy's going to deliver, and we know he's going to deliver.
I didn't either. Yeah.
Yeah. So like whatever we got, I was fine with, I guess. It wasn't like one of those things where maybe if it was a big Star Wars movie, like if it was the Rey trailer for the new Rey movie and I felt the way that you feel, then I'd be like, oh no, like those Star Wars movie trailers are always just such awesome pieces of the saga.
Here's the thing. I think it's a disservice to Tony Gilroy, his storytelling, his beautiful writing, and the incredible acting we see in this series. If this series is so critically acclaimed and everybody loves it, and it's people at the top of their game, like best performing, Emmy Award winning actors from acting performances from everybody, then show us those acting performances. Don't throw a song over a bunch of clips that I can't hear anybody speaking and just make it one big montage.
Yeah. I mean, but it is possible he chose what cut of the trailer to run though, So
I don't know. Do you think
JJ
he
did
would?
that.
That might have been
Yeah.
a marketing thing.
I know JJ did that for episode 9 with those trailers, but
Maybe.
But either
But even
way,
those trailers, remember how emotional you felt watching the episode 9 trailer?
Oh yeah.
How like the beats and the emotional toll of like C-3PO and then Rey's fighting Kylo and then all these like beautiful moments and then like moments that like have you punch in and being like, yeah, let's do this.
The
I got
emotional
none of
Star
that.
Wars theme. Yeah.
Yeah, I got none of that from this.
And
I'm
fine.
not asking for like keyboard like force theme like some of those trailers give. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm just asking for some semblance of a storyline in the trailer. Give me something.
Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Sure.
I'm gonna chill out here to counteract.
Please do, because I feel like I'm being
the
super
dark
negative
side
because I don't.
today. Yeah, you're negative today. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
funny-
It's just I
but no, but it's funny
appreciate
because-
editing so much. It's so important to me. So when I feel like something like this has been dialed in, I just get, I don't know, annoyed.
It's funny because earlier today I was in a bad mood and you were in a good mood.
I'm in a great
and-
mood.
No, I know. So no, jokes aside, I think because they know we know what this story is going to be, essentially, maybe they were like, we don't need to like hold their hand and like tell them what's
But
going to be
that's
the story.
lazy.
They know the story. I know.
Just because I know the story doesn't mean you shouldn't do a good job and pull together a great trailer.
I'm just glad we saw what I think is going to be parts from all of the season and not just what sometimes they typically do, which is 95% first 2 episodes, maybe 5% of non-consequential things later. This one, I feel like they're showing us parts from this entire season.
I agree.
So I
I agree.
appreciate
I
that.
think it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited. I just feel like it could have been more.
It's gonna be a lot of cameos because I think based on the massacre again, Bail Organa, you're gonna get Tarkin.
I think Bale's
Obviously,
in
we-
one of the shots, someone said. When they're
Bale's
talking
in
to
the shot?
Krennic. When they're talking to Krennic, people said Bale's head's to the one side.
I mean, it would make sense, and I won't be surprised because obviously he's in Rogue One and he came back for Obi-Wan. But the only other thing that I caught from reading up on the Gorman massacre is that Magva Yarrow, who appears in Rogue One, was part of the protests on that planet. And Magva Yarrow survives the massacre and ends up joining Saw Gerrera's partisans. So I think that person that he's yelling to, I think Saw is on Gorman, and I think like Magva escapes and finds him, but that person he's like yelling to with those lines at the end is Magva Yarrow. I think it's that character that we see on Jeddah in Rogue One that helps like sort of help protect them. So I think that's who that character is. And
Will
that's
we see
another
Jyn Erso?
Rogue One connection? No. This trailer made me feel like absolutely not. And I think Tony Gilroy is one creator who can resist the temptation of that good feeling of seeing that person again. You know, he's that I don't want to say fan service because it's just so said, but just that nice little blanket of like, oh, it's Jyn again. This is so great. I didn't get the feeling that we're going to see her. I think he has enough reservation and discipline to not do that. So that's my guess. Do you think we're going to see her?
I mean, there's a chance. I do think they need to answer the Cassian sister scenario because we had that thread in the beginning of the series of where's his sister, and then we never heard about it again. And some people online are theorizing that the sister could be the person that's working directly with Luthen.
Oh, yes. Right.
Because they look alike. That may be their brother and sister.
Oh, interesting. I love it.
That's
We're already
interesting.
starting the wild speculation.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I'm excited. I do think this show for me is going to hit harder.
100%.
so-
It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to probably cry multiple times.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of darkness, a lot of sadness, a lot of death. But ultimately,
hope.
Knowing that this is the roots of the rebellion, which is just going to be very cool to see and be able to always like go back to and watch. So it's going to be really well made. It's going to be well received. So I don't care who watches.
I hope
the
it
show
wins
at this
some
point.
stuff.
Yeah. So and Tony Gilroy is, I think, as someone of his prestige and respect, might entice more people who've been hesitant to come to Star Wars to come make some Star Wars. So we will definitely be doing prediction episodes as we get closer. Probably maybe even our last episode before Celebration. We'll just take it easy, have fun, and throw our predictions out there like we always like to do. But I like that we're going here. What about the poster? Last thing, the poster that came out, very similar to one of the Rogue One posters, of course, but it is clearly not one of those montage. It's not an AI. It's Cassian front and center headshot. Simple. I like it, and it has its own unique identity.
It was fine. It was all right.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us here.
I think my criticism is a little too blurry. They put a little too much Gaussian blur on Cassian.
This might be your most negative episode.
I'm sorry, guys.
Broadcast.
I'm sorry. And it's not even negative because I wouldn't say that I don't like it. I'm just saying, like, is it one I would hang up on my wall? Probably not. But I'm sure there's going to be an even better poster that I'm excited about. Like, I
Yeah,
still
right.
love the Rogue one where they're running through the water and the Death Stars in the
Yeah.
sky. I love that poster. So
That is
when
cool.
in my fandom brain, I compare any new poster to that, which is like top tier for me.
Absolutely.
So does it reach that level? No. Is it good? Of course it's good because it's Diego Luna and he's pretty to look at.
We'll probably get one at Celebration.
That'd be great.
All right. Here is the deal. That was a big show, so we're going to get out of here. So thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. We did all our plugs at the top, so not much else to do there. I do want to give a special shout-out to our generals and spice runners on Patreon. We mentioned Patreon at the top. We have to mention these people specifically because they keep our little rebellion going. We have General Carmelo, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, DANI, Mike Rumore, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi, DiMaggio, Colin Cormier, Stephen Garrow, Sachi, and Darth Snips. And the Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shah, Kendall Gellner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the THEFORTWORTHIAN. And anyone who supports us on Patreon, of course. Anyone who just clicks on Spotify or Apple or YouTube and watches the show, buys a t-shirt, whatever. However you take in TRB, thank you very, very much. Hit me up on Blue Sky at Johnny Hoey. Follow me over there. That's where I'm doing most of my posting now. Unless you want my sports hate posting, which is also it's continuing to happen on X. And then my movie pod, Just Like the Movies. And of course, Lacey and I on Nerdy and Nice. Monday, we gave all those plugs at the top as well. Check that show out if you haven't. We have a really good time over there. But Lacey, where can people hit you up to talk about all the things we just talked about? Wow.
Well, quick reminder that our TRB Tokyo collection comes up on Friday, February 28th at noon Eastern. It's up till April 2nd, so definitely grab those. We worked really hard on them. After that, you can find me and yell at me because I know that's coming after this episode at Lacey Gilleran on social media at It's Lacey Gilleran on TikTok. I'm sorry. Please. I'm so excited for the show, but when it comes down to technical things and marketing, it's like sometimes I'm just like, come on, guys, you have such a good property. Why are you doing this?
You're honest and you're fair and you're respectful.
But I'm gonna get some hate. It's okay. I deserved it. It's all right. It's okay.
Whatever.
Love you guys.
All right, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back with you guys next week with another episode of TRB, of course. Maybe discussion, maybe news. We'll see what else comes out about this Kathleen Kennedy stuff. But always with you here every week, and of course, Nerdy and Nice on Monday. So have a wonderful weekend. March is here, which means the sun is shining later in the day. It'll be warming up, and before you know it, Star Wars Celebration, new Star Wars show, and good times ahead. So from us here at TRB, until next time, we'll see you around, kids.